So open up Replit, go to home. Let's do a new REPL, C#. I'm gonna call this while loop block 2. So I need someone to tell me how many times does a for loop repeat? Right. So you determine how many times it is going to loop, whether through their input or you just hard coding how many times it's going to loop. What if you don't know how many times it's supposed to loop? Like, what if you're waiting on them to type in the correct thing? Like, who was working on the number guesser? Okay, so what if, so like on that one, you have to type in how many guesses the computer gets. What if you want it to have as many guesses as it takes? Well, if you have to have something, there has to be some hard set end for a for loop. Today we're going to learn about a while loop that has no hard ending that you set, that you usually you're not going to know how many times it's going to run when you start it. So it's pretty useful for most of the things in this class. We're going to use for loops because you should know how many times it will loop, but a while loop is always a good thing to learn. And as you get into more advanced complex things, while loops are really, really useful. So to start, let's create a bool set, bool condition, set that equal to true. Can y'all see that in the back? How about that? Can y'all see that? Okay. So for a while loop, it's pretty easy. Just like a for loop in an if statement, you just say while. And then in this parentheses is going to be, it's a lot like an if statement. So it's just one condition. So while this Boolean named condition equals true, we're going to repeat whatever is within these brackets. So as long as condition has the value of true, we're going to keep repeating forever. So it's really easy to get stuck in infinite loops using while loops. Like right now, this is an infinite loop. If I were to run this, it's going to say hello forever because this variable here is never changed. It's always true. So while this condition is true, it's going to keep repeating. Now, if let's do string. So usually with while loops, especially for these the assignments for this class, you're going to want to have some kind of an input at the beginning. Not only will this stop it, so the program will stop and wait for me to type something in before it loops. That way, this is still an infinite loop, but it's waiting for me to say something. So I can use this input for I don't know, if input is equivalent to stop, we can set condition equal to false. So this program is waiting for me to, it's going to keep repeating until I type in stop, and then it will stop. So I don't know how many times this is going to repeat. This particular example is really good for input verification. So you've all done it. If you type in a password and it doesn't have a number at the end of it, or there's no caps, they're probably using something like this to check, make sure if the thing that you typed in has the correct input, and if not, repeat it so that you can type in the correct thing. Because you don't know how many times it's going to take for a user to be dumb enough to not type something in. So a while loop will just keep doing it until they figure something out. Pretty handy for stuff like that. You can also use these I'll let y'all, sounds like some of y'all are trying to type this in. Do this so you can keep typing it. So let's say I want to use a while loop with the same functionality as a for loop. Maybe you're one of those kind of guys. So we need our iterator set to something. So this right here, what do you guys think this is going to do? Trey, what's this going to do? This code right here. Yeah, so this is just going to loop, print out the numbers 0 through 9. Just like a for loop. So if you've been having trouble understanding what a for loop is doing, this is more or less the same. What is different about this I? Versus a for loop. If I had what is the difference between doing this and this? There's a big one. Really big, important difference. So these are the same. Whatever's in this right here is just at the end of the loop. So these are equivalent. This is equivalent. There's something different about the I. This is where things get tricky. This I exists only within the for loop. This I exists everywhere. Because I've written this up here, I can't have this for loop here. Because a local variable named I has already been declared here. I can't use it here. What's up? No. No, not for a for loop. I need brackets, but I didn't write those. So the issue with this is that I has already been declared. In a for loop, when you declare your iterator variable, it only exists in this for loop, in this block of code. If you initialize a iterator variable outside of a for loop, it exists everywhere. So I is already taken. And when I change it here, so if I were to make another while loop that uses I again, one might think your I has gone back down to 0. But it doesn't. It prints out these 9 variables. I has increased every loop. And then when we get to our next one, I is still at 10. So you have to watch out for that. Something that isn't immediately obvious. So an I, or an iterator variable in a for loop, exists only within that for loop. For a while loop, you don't have an iterator variable. You don't have anything that exists just in the while loop. That will for sure be on a test. So that was the first assignment. Second assignment is some math. So just like anything, let's get an input. Wait, I don't want that. Next. All right, Luke, what is this going to do? What is this? What is the function of this program?
So if your input is greater than 0, the console will turn out that times 2.
Right, every time. So we're going to type in some number, and as long as that number is greater than 0, we're going to print it to the console and then subtract 2 from it. So I don't know how many times it's going to loop. I have no idea. Depends on what our input is. So if I input 25, oh, hang on, this should probably be a right line. I do 25, print out every number, every other number, until we get to the ends, until this X is 0 or smaller. So you can do any kind of mathematical operation just like normal. Don't multiply it, we divide it. Not bad. Cool. Easy enough. What's the next one? That's about the same. Does anyone have any questions over what while loops are doing right now, or anything they'd like to see so far? There's one more thing I want to show you. That's the real cool thing with while loops, but for now, this shouldn't be too confusing. If you got for loops, while loops are even easier, much easier. Okay. So one thing you can do with while loops is create a game loop. So every game constantly loops every frame, okay? And that's dependent on your machine. This, I don't know how many frames this will do, but it's going to loop. This probably does 60 times per second. So while true, this is an infinite loop, but I want it to be infinite. Let's go. Now let's go car. Well, you know what? I don't want to do car. I want to do string. If input. All right, so we have the beginnings of a console game. Every time I hit right or R, I'm going to move to the right forever. I can always move right. If I add something for this, well, so now I can move left and right. Whoops, what we got? Oh, else if. I can move right and I can move left. And honestly, these should be D and A. So this is the beginnings of our first real-time game. This is more or less what your code is going to be looking like when we get into Unity. You'll have, if you put in, or if you press this button, you'll do this. If you press this button, you'll do that. Let's do a... This is definitely something to play around with when you're bored. Oh, hang on. Here. I cooked up something last period because I thought that was really fun. Is it this one? So something you can do when you spend a little bit more time, move this out of the way, and learn a couple more things. I'm still deciding if we're going to do a game like this or not, but without hitting anything, I can move my X around. Those little T's are randomly generated, so they're in different spots every time the game is run. If I run it again. They're completely different. If I go into one, it takes me into a town. I can go check out the blacksmith, leave the blacksmith, leave the town, check my inventory, walk around,